Hello, everybody. It doesn't look like anybody is going to join us today in the chat. This is my first uh, broadcast. Hopefully, there will be more to come if we get some people that want to join in when they can. This was set up kind of short notice. Kind of picked a poor time because we have a high school football game going on right next to the house. So if you hear random music, crowds cheering, drum, the high school marching band, that's what's going on behind me. So today it's just kind of a general discussion on films. What makes a great film to you? Um, Nothing too deep. But the goal is at the by the end of each broadcast, I will have a poll set up with a couple films in it, and the chat will vote on what film they want to discuss next, and then the next meeting or next discussion on Twitch. Which, if you look at the bottom, I have the schedule posted for different broadcast dates and times. And what the subject will be, I will update it with whatever film is selected by the end of the broadcast. If nobody joins us today, then I will pick the film for the next discussion. But for tonight, we're going to go ahead and discuss, what makes a great film. Um, so for each aspect of filmmaking, there seems to be either all these parts seem to be firing, and gonna kind of use this as a rubric. So some of the what needs to be working is a script, character, acting, timing, sound, and the visuals. With all these parts working harmoniously throughout the film, the viewer will not get jarred from the experience. Also, believability will be maintained. That's how we can do a movie on modern living dinosaurs. As long as they stay within the reality of the film, we don't get jarred, and we can stay watching the film and enjoying it. So we'll talk a little bit about the script. There are different types of scripts, different types of plot points that drive it, that drive the story forward. Um, so I'm going to be kind of discussing Christopher Booker's book, The Seven Basic Plots: Why We Tell Stories. Um, so a couple ideas, some seven plots for him: overcoming the monster, rags to riches, the quest, voyage and return, comedy, tragedy, and rebirth. There are several other books for screenwriting and different types of authors that some have 10 basic plots, some have 20, 30, so on and so forth. Seven is pretty generally easy to handle. um, so let's look at like movies that overcoming the monster. The monster doesn't always have to be, let's say, the alien from Aliens. It can be someone like, let's say, Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. um, But that's it's one of the first plot that we discussed. rags to riches, the Cinderella story, the person that has nothing and rises up. A lot of people find these characters relatable, especially with today's economy in America. It's really easy to identify with someone that can give you hope, uh, to help drive you to overcome what you're going through. There's the quest, something, think of Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. Also falls in the comedy, but their quest for their stoner food, man, it's, you know, fun movie, and just give you an idea. The other one, the next one, Voyage and Return, something like Lord of the Rings. It falls in the same category as Quest. Um, they're trying to achieve something, but at the same time, the idea is to drop the ring off and come back. Um, you got your comedies. There's different types: slapstick, buffoonery, so on and so forth. Um, one of my favorites. I mean, it's funny to me is you look at something like Dumb and Dumber, well written movie. They stay within their own reality, even when it's absolute absurdity. There's the movies that have tragedy, something like Schindler's List. I dare you not to cry at the end of that one. Seems like someone's always chopping onions at the end of that. And then the rebirth, something like The Matrix, where there's the death and rebirth. The character was not the same person they were when they first started out. They go through a symbolic death and return. It could also be the Christ uh, complex kind of deal. So those are some of the plots when you're writing a script and we're watching these movies. We just want something that is relatable, and if it is slightly absurd, it stays within its own reality. That it doesn't break its own rules. You've seen those movies where, oh, I magically have a new superpower, and it solved all our problems. Sorry, jarred from the movie. I'm not enjoying this anymore. But we want to look at the plot, the dialogue to be believable between the characters, something that doesn't sound forced, reading a script. Again, it comes down to not wanting to jar us from the experience that we're having. So the dialogue to be believable. Do people sound the way they do when they're under stress or happy, or even when you watch movies where it's been, where it's based overseas in a country that you may have been to, and suddenly you're jarred from the movie because that's not how people in Russia actually behave, talk, or think. And then there's also the subtext. Um, you were watching a film that actually has an underlying message, something like A Beautiful Mind. It has a message about mental health and making us being put into the other character's shoes. We can now see ourselves as that character. We may not have any mental health issues, but we can finally have empathy for the character. So in the script, to create a good film, it just needs to be believable, something relatable. And if you are going to go absurd and out there, make sure you don't break your own movie rules. So for you, what movies have you watched where the dialogue, the writing is just so on point, even if the visuals are terrible, low budget, doesn't matter. The script just ties me in. List in the comments your idea of your favorite, uh, you know, dialogue or script. Um, Next is the character. Are they flawed? What are their desires? What are their goals? If these things are not laid out for us, even if their intentions are hidden, they're later revealed. Do we have some kind of investment into the character? If you're going to kill off the main character, at least make us love them a little bit. Sure, it pisses us off, but we care enough about them. So, you know, movies where the hero has issues. Right now, the big hot thing is superhero movies. But you look at a movie like Hancock or Will Smith, an alcoholic superhero, clearly flawed. Still enjoyable up to the first half. I get lost in the end. It's, you know, that movie jars me from the reality. But you get the idea. The character's desires, whether it's Star Wars and Luke's ultimate goal of wanting to become a Jedi. So a well written character where their flaws, where they're either flawed or um, authentic, something that either we haven't seen or if it's a new take on something we have seen. Uh, we want good acting characters. To you, right? Go ahead, put in the comments characters that are just timeless. They seem to fit in any time frame, no matter what. Just share your thoughts. Acting, man. If you can get an Academy Award winner in a film, but if they can't deliver or they can't fit themselves in that that character they're trying to be, it's jarring. Trying to force big budget movie theater names into a movie, it doesn't work. So the acting has to be on point. You look at something like Good Will Hunting. The Robin Williams is clearly able to convey several emotions that are believable. Um, you know, it's trying to watch Tommy Lee Jones in a comedy. Could he do it? Deadpan. Doing deadpan comedy maybe, but buffoonery, never. Um, the authenticity of the acting. Do you believe that that character is them? Are they giving a believable performance, or are they phoning it in? Um, you know, so also the other thing with acting is body language. We as human beings don't just listen to the words, but we also look for nonverbals. It's not we look at what they're saying, voice, tone, cadence. Um, but if the with the acting, if they're clearly upset but they've got a grin on their face, we're gonna be kind of jarred. Like, well, wait, what's going on? And if that's never addressed, they had a secret motive or something, then we're completely jarred. It was poor acting. So, the nonverbals and the verbals and how the actors deliver it. Um, so to you, what movies had phenomenal acting? Maybe an actor outside. I mean, you look at something like Silence of the Lambs with Hannibal Lecter, had the shortest amount of time screen time, yet won an Academy Award. Um, we believed that he was a true sociopath. It was believable. Um, Next is timing. Um, Cutting between multiple plots. Whenever you watch a movie, there is the plot, there are subplots, many things different going, things going on, and they shouldn't be confusing. They don't always have to be linear, but again, it's setting up and establishing the rules of the film. Something like loopers, where you're bouncing back and forth between time. Um, Back to the Future. We know what time they are in, even if they don't mention what year it is. We can look at the vehicles, the housing. Again, that goes with the structure, but we're going to be cutting between these different, things. We're not jarred. Also, cutting in between scenes. Um, Again, we're visual. We're not just listening to the movie; we're watching. And if one actor is speaking to another, and it looks like they cut between the dialogue. Actor A on one side, actor B is right across, and they're having a conversation, and they're like cutting it. All of a sudden they cut the scene, and we're watching one person talk, and then the next thing you know, we're cut to mid speech. We're watching a cat lick himself, and it has nothing to do with the film. Might be funny, but the timing is off. Also bouncing between dialogue back and forth. Also pacing. The movie is suddenly quickening. We're getting to the climax. We're getting there, and suddenly it drops off. You look at something like the very first, in the prequels of Star Wars, Episode 1. We cut between something that is, a comedic scene or a sad scene. It doesn't really flow. You go from a horribly sad scene, the comedic timing, is going to fall flat, and everyone's going to hate Jar Jar Binks in the end. Um, I don't think timing had anything to do with the hate on him, but at the same time, if you look at the documentary they did behind the scenes of this, first Star Wars movie, where George Lucas, visibly does not like his film, and he starts convincing himself through this documentary, well, it's not too bad, but everybody in the sound like, yeah, you did this wrong, you cut this here, you cut this there, you don't want to go from a sad scene to a comedic scene. It falls flat. I think The Simpsons actually parodied this with Homer was supposed to make fun of his, Mr. Burns, and they come out on stage and he says, "Oh, a dog, unlike, just like Lassie was killed in the parking lot. By the way, here's the comedy stylings of Homer," and it's like bad timing, man. It's just nothing you say at that point is gonna be funny. Um, so, you know, that's something else that we may not notice the timing, but our brains are saying, "Oh, I'm just not feeling this movie." So, something to look at. Sound, being the next one. Immersive sounds. There are frequencies that movies push that can create the hairs on your arms to stand. It could be a beautiful, you look at something, anything with John composed by John Williams adds emotion to a film. Again, you look at Schindler's List. You don't want to hear, you know, a happy-go-lucky song. I mean, some of you are sick enough you'd love to, during the Holocaust scenes, but um, the songs can buy you into it. You look at, I'll use a TV show like Malcolm in the Middle. They didn't have a laugh track during the show. A lot of TV shows don't have laugh tracks. Big Bang Theory gets a lot of, a hit from that. That it's they use a laugh track to cue you to laugh, even if you don't understand the joke. Where something like Malcolm in the Middle used music to help influence emotion in the people as the viewers as they're watching. So careful management of sound, music creates an immersive experience. And again, going back to the timing beforehand of when the sound plays, um, you know, it can help drive the movie. Last are visuals. And I'll use, again, this, I'm not trying to beat up on George Lucas here. The internet does plenty of that already. But you look at Star Wars Episode 1. But you look at how much visuals and CGI he used, where the CGI was almost the plot. Um, there was more time put in green screens than into the actual script. But not a lot of people had done it on the scale he did. And he kind of laid out the groundwork of what good CGI looks like and what bad CGI looks like. And as time went on, we get something like Avatar with these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful visuals that pull us into the film even more. That we're on this beautiful planet, even all the way to 3D. Um, so something like Star Wars, where the CGI was so bad, it made you cringe, laid the groundwork to improve CGI. So we look at something like Avatar, where the visuals are just as important as the story, the sound. You feel like you're there. You're not being kicked out. Other movies, something like Fight Club. That was a gritty film. Can you find a perfectly crisp scene, clean scene? Because if you can, that's the scene they blew up, symbolizing breaking away from that lifestyle. But something like Fight Club with the grimy scene, lighting in Shawshank Redemption kind of helps. The lighting becomes part of the story, whether it's a dark noir type film or a happy, you know. So something like that. The visuals, the props, the lighting, all become part of the story. Also used with the visuals can also help drive symbolism, things that speak to our subconscious. We don't know why we're enjoying it. We don't know why it resonates with us, but it does, and it helps drive it. So the idea of the perfect film, where script, character, acting, timing, sound, the visuals are so tied together, they drive the story. You sit there, you can suspend belief that there are giant monsters flying around space, fighting, weird aliens. We may not, that may not be fitting in our reality, but the reality that they set, we are believing it. We are feeling it. We are tied to the characters. So what, to you, when looking over those things, um, and you consider, you may not understand why you like your favorite film, and that's okay. But I would like for you to share what is your favorite film. Do you know why? Is there something that just catches you? It doesn't have to be a high budget film. It can be a high budget film. It could be a high budget superhero film. If there's something in there that just you can watch it over and over and over, um, share with us. Um, but again, what's important to you? I'd like to know what's important to you in a film. What is something that you would like to see? What is something that Hollywood's doing now? I was reading an article today about the blockbuster has become an everyday thing. It used to be the summer blockbusters. Kids are getting out of school in America. What are the big hot films? Now it seems that every film being pushed are blockbusters. Every single month there are major films. There are no lower budget films, which they are. Um, but I don't feel that the other the shorter film, the 90-minute runtime, simple to the point film is dead. It's just that, again, the grab for money. You got to have a major blockbuster, a must see. Um, so I don't think it's completely gone, but it is what it is. But I'd like to know what some of your favorite. Make a list. Number 1 through 7. What's your favorite overcoming the monster? Your favorite rags to riches? The Quest. Number 3. Number 4. The Voyage and Return. 5. What's your favorite comedy? 6. Tragedy. And 7. Rebirth. If there's any others you want to just throw in just because, go for it. Let me know what's good. I mean, why are you watching these films? What ties you to it? Um, and if anybody wants to hop in, join the chat. Feel free. Uh, One of the other things I like to do with films, sometimes I watch them looking for subtext, or I'm looking for foreshadowing, something that peaks to my to an intellectual labor. What's your feel good movie? You're having a bad day, you can put on. It's probably the movie could have won a Razzie. You could have the worst score on Rotten Tomatoes. I'd love to know what your feel good film is. Um, for me, I don't know why, but it's I just love the movie Rocky. I don't know if it's. I mean, I did some boxing when I was younger, but I wouldn't call myself relatable because I quit doing that. Where that was you know his driving force, that was his passion. Even though he bashed it, talking about getting punched in the head, 500 times a night. That's just part of who he was. Um, but I like the story. This, you know, just this broke down and out guy, just trying to do the best with what he can. Um, overcoming all odds and getting his one shot. And at first he turns down the one shot and doesn't want to fight the world champion, and changes his mind and fights the big fight, and he loses. Spoiler alert, I guess, in the beginning. I guess if you haven't seen Rocky, um, you know, you've missed out, and yeah, in the end, he loses. So, um, but ultimately he doesn't. He took the one shot that he originally turned down. He didn't have all the fancy gear. He didn't have all the specialized training and doctors, working for him. He just wanted to know he could go the distance. So while he literally lost, in the end he won because he proved to himself he could go to the distance. It becomes really easy to just quit and give up. But Rocky pushed through and persevered, and I like to watch those kinds of stories. Um, they keep me, going in. They keep me sitting there, and even though I know what's going to happen, I've watched it 100 times. I'll watch it another 100 more times. You know, and on the graphic I have listed up here, I've got a Citizen Kane, um, got the Big Lebowski and Wizard of Oz. Citizen Kane considered one of the most perfect films ever written. Perfect score on Rotten Tomatoes. Um, literally down and out. Family. He sold off, um, and I'm convinced Matt Groening was in love with this because the first 9 seasons of The Simpsons parodies Citizen Kane so much. You look at Mr. Burns; it's loosely based off the life of Citizen Kane. Um, but again, just you got a short time with the rags, but it goes to the riches. Um, Sometimes he meets an obstacle. He can overcome any obstacle with money and influence, but he was unable to recapture the one thing he wanted, which is a lost youth. Uh, the one thing he seeked, he never got. Yet you would think a film where you don't get what you want in the end, Rocky not winning the championship, sure he got money, but Citizen Kane never finding the one thing he wanted, which he could not buy or influence or force. Still a beautifully written movie. Um, the visuals are stunning. Uh, the Wizard of Oz with the Technicolor and going from the black and white, leaving Kansas and Hollywood entering and to the golden era of filmmaking with the bright colors and very saturated colors, but beautiful at the same time. And I have the Big Lebowski up there because I love that movie. So you know the dude only just wants his rug replaced, and it's everybody else's quest that he gets sucked into. And there are all these internet theories on whether the other characters even exist. If the dude is just a completely schizophrenic guy who's imagining Donnie and or Walter is the schizophrenic guy, and he's imagining Donnie, and everybody around him is just his friends going along with his psychosis. So I don't know. It's just a fun movie. Um, Whether you're drunk, stoned, or completely sober, another one of my go-to feel-good films. Definitely worth the watch if you've never seen it. So yeah. Let me know what your feel-good films are, your favorite movies. Um, what's your go-to? So well, I have been rambling for about half an hour now. Doesn't look like anyone's going to join us in the chat. Again, this is my first broadcast. I hope to polish some things here and there. Hopefully, in the future, be able to set up a camera, have some more visuals. Maybe do it on a night where there's not a football game, high school football game going on in the background. But yeah, I mean, it's again, if leave in the comments if there's some movies you want to discuss. If you're not sure when the next discussion is, I have the schedule up on my Twitch. I also have some links below for some of my social media accounts if you want to follow some of my photography, uh, short films that I'll be working on in the future. Also, I'm doing a photo editing and discussion group so we can discuss photography as well while I'm editing a picture. If you want to give advice or hey, I like this better, that better while I'm editing, speak on it and we'll discuss it because again, there's different ways of seeing an image, and I love other people's input. That's why I'm doing these discussion groups. So yeah, that will cover today. Again, what makes a great movie? We can look at the textbook examples, but to you as an individual, uh, what do you want to see in a film? What are your favorite films? And yeah, just share it, and maybe we'll discuss it one day. Um, as I put up these polls. So yeah, um, since there was nobody in the discussion today, I'm going to upload this video into YouTube. My YouTube channel is in right below. Go ahead and click on that. That'll take you over there. Put it in the comments. Let me know your favorite film, and I'll count them up, and we'll go ahead and discuss that the next go around. Again, this has been I'm Matthew Ingalls, and yeah, that should cover tonight. Everybody have a great night. Thank you.